Hola community, welcome to BlenderToday Live. I'm Pablo Vazquez, streaming from the Blender HQ here in Amsterdam. We are here together to see what's new in Blender since the last 2 weeks, since the last time we've hang out. Most of the work is going in 5.0. Many of the big changes, the most disruptive changes have happened in the 5.0 branch. At this point, and 5.0 is only a few weeks old, the development. This is a very, very, very early stages. Like if Blender was a commercial tool, like a regular tool, software, you wouldn't even hear about these changes, right? You don't even know until they come out. Yeah, so many of the changes that are happening right now, they are disruptive. Pretty much all your themes are probably broken. All your many add-ons are probably broken at this point, because it's very early in the stage, right? Like the idea is that when 5.0 reaches beta, that the users are encouraged to update their add-ons, extensions, and so on. But at this point, yes, even blend files are in a stage of if you save a blend file in Blender 5, it won't open in Blender 4 anymore and previous. It will open in Blender 4.5. but not 4.4, for example. I'm gonna talk to you about it more in a bit. But yeah, 4.5 serves as a bridge, like it happened in previous releases. But yeah, it's like this. You can still open it in 4.4 actually. If you open a blend file save in 5.0, in 4.5, save it, and then you can open it in previous Blender versions, but not directly from 5.0. You need this little dance, because Blender is growing. Yes, not in funding that much, but in usage. And reminder, Blender conference is happening. There is about less than 200 tickets. There is 500, less than 200, 150, 200 tickets left. So yeah, if you're coming to Amsterdam on the September 17th to 19th to hang out with other Blender heads, the tickets are there. There's 2 tickets, a full ticket and then 1-day ticket. If you're a developer that have contributed in the last 12 months, you get a special discount. Let's see, what else is new? Well, Studio.blender.org, the game dog walk. I don't think they have announced the date yet, but maybe I can give you a little hint of when you can try the game. I think it might be before Blender 4.5 comes out. So Blender 4.5 is July 15th, right? If we go to projects.blender.org, 4.5 LTS release is the 15th of July. So I have a feeling that we might see Dog Walk the week before. So this is on a Wednesday, I believe, and or Tuesday, Wednesday, and the release might happen on the week before, maybe for the weekend. You know, maybe it's a good reason to start the weekend and go play go play the game. So yes, the release, by the way, this is on. It will be on Steam, but it's already on Steam for wishlisting. So if you feel like wishlisting it, it's a good sign. The game will be free. It's free. It's free and open source. For Studio subscribers, you get access to the blend files and all the data, right? But the game itself is free. The website says Q3. Yes, yes. All right. That's it. By the way, thanks everyone. Hola, I'm in the chat here. The rest of the news are all about 5.0. So what if we just get started with what's new in Blender 5? Well, actually, there is one thing that it should have been in 4.4. It's a bug fix, but it is in 4.5. So the action slot. So we start with the animation section. As usual, we go alphabetically. There is around 485 commits, of which over 100 are fixes, many cleanups and refactors. But this is everything that is new in Blender since June 10 to June 24. The animation changes that I mentioned that should have been before and actually were ported to 4.5 is that the action and slot selector wasn't there in the node editor's side panel. So you would only find it in the other places, like in the data properties sidebar. But now they're there, and they have been removed from the compositor because they are no longer needed over there. Then what else? Tests. We don't usually give tests enough visibility, but they take a lot of time. They're now part of Blender's built in, like part of the source code of Blender, the tests. And now there are a few tests to improve the coverage of what can go wrong with armatures. And this is a great first step because there are a few features that, yeah, how do you even test if things are working or not, right? You need to open a file, maybe an animation, check that it's working there. So yeah, this is automated, and this can run every night. It runs all the complete full tests, or they are on demand by developers when they choose to update a specific section of it. Then we have so many changes in attribute storage compatibility. We're gonna see that a lot. It's a trend lately. But this, for example, enable new file format by default. Yep. So Blender has a new file format, blend file format that, well, it's a small thing changed. A small feature that is pretty big by definition, because allows blend files to store data blocks bigger than 2 gigabytes, which means that sometimes, like what can be heavy, like vertices, like geometry is heavy. So it means that now you were limited to meshes with a few 100 million polygons, and now you can have more. So this is also part of the future. It's like future-proofing Blender to be able to open these blend files. 4.5 is able to read the new format. It's just that 5.0 is going to write to them in this format by default. So keep an eye on that. Then also Big-Endian support. This is for really old systems, mainly. I think every system nowadays it's a little Indian. And there are some discussions there, like apparently Debian was still building with some of these platforms, like the S93 390X, which was released in 1990 and discontinued in 2004. So yep, Blender is deprecating some really old systems, and this is a good thing that Blender is moving forward. Less code to maintain, but yeah, nice. Then also making the code more clean and lean. There are many changes this week that remove thousands of license code. So we have CMake updates, we have cleanups, we have, let's see, more cleanups. Blender is squeaky clean. Do you get that reference? Squeaky clean? Which OpenMovie project is that from? All right, next, the big thing, and the title of this episode is that the Compositor, and we actually discussed it a few weeks ago, the Compositor setups are now reusable. Yes, where are my applauses to Habib and the team and the Compositor team? So, what does it mean? Okay, enough. What does it mean? Means that, you know, when you have a material setup that you like, you can reuse it as many times as you want. Geometry nodes, reusable. The Compositor nodes, they were built in, like baked into the scene data. So if you wanted the same setup in a different blend file, you would have to append the scene, then copy and paste, because you cannot copy paste between blend files yet, unfortunately. We love that, but yeah, this is so limiting. Right now you can, and this opens the door for many more potential use cases of these Compositor setups. For image manipulation, for video manipulation, for, yeah, anyways, this is just awesome. So the main difference that you will see now is that it's two, actually. It's the header of the, well, these are old screenshots. So let me show you but the latest and greatest Blender looks like it. I'm opening it now. I'm opening the release version. I usually use the light version of Blender, which is a build version that you can build yourself, but it's very limiting. Like, it doesn't have cycles, it doesn't have anything. So anyway, this is Blender release, Blender 5.0, and this is what you will get from BuildBot, more or less. And if you go to compositing, tell me, what do you see what do you notice that is different over here? Yep, there is no more use nodes, and there is a new compositor, like the same as geometry nodes. You click on new, and there you go. Those are your nodes, and you can have as many as you like, and you can, yeah, share them, link them, append them, anything. This is so much. All right, somebody said squeak clean from glass half. Dialogues, but it's a made up language. So no, it's not glass half. This is awesome. This is amazing. So yep, compositing unleashed. No more use nodes. There is no point in use nodes anymore, right? If you don't want to use nodes, you either well, if you don't want to see if you don't want to calculate what is in here, so you just basically remove backdrop. If you don't want to calculate it at the end of the composite, you still have the output panel, settings, post-processing panel, compositing. So this would not run it when you render, like offline. Then this is for the backdrop of the compositor, and in the viewport, if you don't have anything here, if you're not running the in shading mode, preview or render, if you don't run the compositor, then it doesn't run. So it's the same thing, same concept. One less setting to tweak. And actually, this one less thing to tweak in 5.0, it's gonna be a recurring topic this week, today. All right, let's see. What else? Okay, more additions. In the compositor, there is a new interpolation options to the Displace node. It's similar to what we've seen before, anisotropic and other interpolation modes. We've seen this in the last live stream and in the past. And the same for the map UV node. There is also filtering options, bilinear and bicubic interpolation, not filtering, interpolation methods for the map UV node. Then we have other changes, compatibility removed, deprecated compositor properties. 5.0 is going to be squeaky clean because many things are going away. You know what's not going away is the glare node, and it actually is getting better. In 5.0 there are improvements to the quality of the glare node, the options. So apparently there were some issues where small highlights that were only like a few number of pixels could end up causing flickering and glitchy looks effects in your composites. If you were using these low quality glitchy effects as something on purpose, then I'm sorry to tell you that now the quality is in medium and high is gonna fix that, but I think the low quality would still keep that. So actually you are saved. Yeah, the medium and low quality, this fixes when you use a higher quality downsampling filter that average the 2x2 and 4x4 pixel blocks for the medium and the low quality. Actually no, maybe the low quality is better. I haven't tested it myself, and they're not that many. Oh, now there is an old behavior with a tiny moving object producing the flickering, and the new behavior. Wow, that's so nice. Thanks Omar and Mohammed. But we were just discussing this earlier, that they were like they committed, the PR itself was lacking this, but this is awesome. This makes the change so much nicer. Although if you wanted to see this is before and this is after. Look at how stable it is. That's so cool. And this is one of those changes that are coming from the Blender GSOC, the Google Summer of Code project. So if you go to GSOC 2025, you will see one of the projects are glare node enhancements. So super nice, super nice. And you can actually see what else is gonna come in this, right? You should see proposal, general improvements, tricks modes redesign. Okay, so there's more to come for the glare node. This is just the first step. So thank you, Omar and Mohammed. Let's see, what else is new? Removals. Oh yeah, many removals. The value node, the color ramp node has been removed. And now is when people cut this for social media and they say that Blender is removing things. No. Well, yes, but for a good reason, because Blender has a color ramp node. Every other editor has. And they all come from this one color ramp, which is the shader node. So shader color ramp, it's a node that is shared with other parts of Blender. So the compositor and shader now use only one. Yes, even though sometimes they look the same, not always. Blender for a while had two color nodes, one more like powerful than the other. And actually some of the nodes were kept around for compatibility. So when you open an old blend file, it would still use the old node. So now internally 5.0 no longer has those nodes, and this is awesome because less things for users to maintain. Actually, the mix color node also has been the old one. The map range node, however, it's no, this one has been removed. The map value node has been removed and does not have a replacement because you should use the map range node instead because they're very similar. Just they do the same thing, just the map range node has more options. So that's the one node that doesn't have a replacement. But everything else, like the separate, combine, XYZ, math, vector curves, they all have a replacement because, yeah, they're duplicate basically, from what they've been saying. Yes. Let's see. What else? The texture node also has been removed. Not texture nodes, but the texture itself node has been removed. Then some small things have been changed, like some of the nodes, the socket names in some of the nodes have been updated. For example, the rotate node had a socket called degree for degree, and now it's called angle. So yes. Small things like this, but it makes the UI much more cohesive. Actually, there are more changes like this coming. I think the good old FAC, so from factor, no, not the other F word, it's gonna become factor. Yay! Also, the RGB node is gonna be renamed to color node, and so on and so forth. Because it's not RGB, it's RGBA, but yeah, we use, sorry, language, I know. Unified color ramp, yes, exactly, like there, like Nana Bud says. Okay, time to move on. Oh yeah, Cartesian Caramel added a tooltip for the map UV node UV input. And with the kind of work that Cartesian Caramel makes on their social media, I trust this person. So yeah, new description for a tooltip basically for the map UV node that was missing, the UV input. All right, time to move to the core part of Blender. We have some improvements to support that memory leaks fixed, then performance. Here's where performance happens and some very exciting feature. But first, performance. Playback in some tests up to 15% faster. In this case, this is things with duplicate. So basically files that have been, I think I opened this before. This example, yeah. So this, for example, this file, this is a very simple geometry node file with a bunch of instances. In this case, I think it was 15% faster playback. So if you press spacebar, this will go 15% faster than before. Of course, this is capped, but when developers test it, they probably uncap it or they find other ways to test it. I trust that. I think at some point Hans also mentioned that he only got, or he got less percentage, less faster. I think it was 6%, no, 2% in some other blend file, the Flower Shop. So it's not in every case, but still I will take 2% improvements any day of the week. But also 2% on a heavy file, the Flower Shop file from Erindale. So yes, I take that. The blend name variable, so the new Blender variables feature, like the ones you can use to, if you haven't heard of it, is awesome. It allows you to, instead of hardcode a path to a render output, for example, I think this should be already in the release notes. Yeah, not here, but in, it's that rendering. It's that, or is that 5 point? No, it's not that 4.5. IO maybe? No, or maybe it is 4.5 core. Path template. Oh my, it's in 4.5. I should work on the release notes. Yep. So the blend name apparently wasn't being used consistently for the current open file, so now it does. Then, okay, this is for sure a Blender 5.0 feature, which is maximum ID names, so data block names, material names, object names, you name it, from 64 to 256 bytes. Which means that I've seen this request multiple times. People that are maybe using scripts to automate naming materials, meshes, objects, and they run into this limit of 64 characters, and that can happen very easily especially if you use scripts. So now you can. Now your data blocks can be longer than 64 bytes, so you can have long names on them. This, of course, if you open it in Blender 4.5, which it doesn't support these long names, you probably will see some truncation. There is some conversion happening in there. So yeah, if you stick around, if you use Blender 5, just stick around with Blender 5, I would say, because so much has changed and will change that for the better. But yeah, hard to make both compatible. Let's see. Add new system ID props storage for runtime generated RNA property. So what does it mean? Well, it as a user, from the user point of view, the only change you will see is I don't know if you notice sometimes that cycles and some other add-ons store internal definitions like custom properties in your scene or in on the window manager or in some level from objects. Some of them are private, you cannot edit them, but they were still there. And now Blender will make a distinction between those two and will no longer show it as to the user, because there is no point, right? There's no way to edit them. Yeah, doesn't make any sense. So probably you can still access it via Python, just not visible to the user. But this has many more implications and future-proofity. So yeah, happy to see those changes, and also happy to see changes when I read about NURBS. We don't get many NURB changes, and this is awesome. Look at that. Curves, enhanced tessellation of NURBS with corners. Look at the current and the patched versions. So let's zoom in. You can see some of these. So apparently corners were not handled pretty well. So let's see if we play these two videos. On the left side you can see the old version, how it wouldn't handle the corners very well, and here you can see that the corners are always preserved. This here, they're preserved, whereas here you would lose and it would be like they soften. While you watch that, I'm gonna try to drink some so I don't run out of voice anymore. Okay. Great news. And also, to me, the biggest news is to have someone like Laurinas Duburas to work on NURBS, improving things. The other change is also related to curves, and now Cyclic curves support proportional editing, thanks to Ilya Katushenok. Thank you, Ilya. Next. Oh, nice. So cycles, yeah, new feature in, well, no feature, no feature. Existing feature improved, and I actually learned about this, the multi-bounce random walk surface scattering. I just learned about this from the user Thomas Marcos, who's been sharing a lot of changes lately in Blender, and I appreciate this is a change that this is before. You can see the, I think this is from the PR, but just sharing it in social media is always nice. And for example, you see these artifacts that it looks like poor guy has been punched or the bed fell on him. And if you go to the next, nice, so previous. Oh, I hate it when websites do that transition to make it nicer, but we can just look at the commit, because then it's hard to compare when things are shown like that. So let's compare this now with this. So this is before, is after. So before, after. So nice. So yeah, your renders are gonna look pretty different if you use big radiuses on radii on your subsurface scattering. So beware that Blender 5 will render them differently. And this user, Thomas Marcos, also had a different, I think he had a different tweet on sharing long data block name, Blender 4. That is like a release notes. Thank you, Thomas. But this one, this was the big one. So can we take a moment to appreciate the insane quality boost of random walk SSS in Blender 5? So this is the one that I just saw, and I wanted to share and thank Thomas for sharing it, because you can see the difference where, I don't know, shadows are more well preserved. I guess this is 4 and this is 5. How can you tell Blender 4.5? Oh, the tabs are different. Yeah, this is 5. And this, no, wait. This is 4 and this is 5. There you go. Nice. Yeah, now it's cool to see these little changes to tell apart 4.5, the UI changes. And there are many UI changes this week, by the way. So yes, thanks Thomas for sharing this news like this. This is slightly slower though. It's not free. So in the example here, went from 9.3 seconds to 10, almost 11 seconds. So it's not free, but it's definitely something you want, because it just looks better. Awesome. What else? Let's move into dependencies, but draw. Yep, more performance improvements by Hans. These two small changes. One is about 1.8% improvement, I believe. Yes. And less memory usage when in overlays. But the other one, the inline small functions, this one also has a 10% improvement in playback, so frames per second, when running the Arindale's Flower Shop blend file, which, if you remember, this is one of the splash screens, and which one is it? 3. Wait, let's see, 283? No. Which one? 293, almost 293. Okay, so this blend file, now, which is pretty heavy in the, like, I mean, it's my Arindale, so you can imagine how much. I think everything is geometry nodes in this, and that was the challenge. So it's pretty heavy, and that is about 10% faster in playback. So amazing. What else? Oh, nice. A new feature in EEVEE. How? It's been a while since we haven't, well, Blender is much fast. EEVEE is much faster now. It opens faster. Everything is faster. But in terms of features, we haven't seen new features in some episodes. So I'm glad to say that there are new features, and it's one that is already present in Cycles, is now ported over to EEVEE, which is support for view layer overrides. EEVEE now supports overriding materials and the world, I believe, right? Those are the two settings. Let's try that. I happen to have my own 3D software here. Let's see. I have EEVEE, yep. And well, let's go to view layer, override, material, world, and samples. Yep. So more of this Blender working with Blender that I love to see. So super nice. Thanks, Clement, for working on this. All the emojis I can possibly see, and a thumbs up. Awesome. So much though that now the UI panel is moved to Blender side. So it's shared between Cycles and EEVEE. Yay for integrations. Awesome. So if you don't know what this does, basically, no matter which, if you have 50 objects with different materials, this will override it and make all the objects share the same material. So it's really good for like a clay render, for example, or for compositing. For you have this per view layer also. So if you make a new view layer that has different world, for example, you want to change, you want to keep everything the same, just override the world. Super nice. Super nice. Let's see. And new changes in FFmpeg, bunch of fixes. Look at how hard the team is working on making Blender stable. These are not even reported. They're all like fix, not even reported. Maybe reported on the chat, but not reported at all. And here are the reports, the one with the numbers. So look at how hard these people work just to keep Blender stable. And all these people, most of them, all the names that I see here, they're actually employees of Blender, and they are paid thanks to your contributions to the Blender Development Fund, together with 7,537 people, individuals that contribute to Blender and corporate. But this is the big thing, the individuals. Although there are corporate that are also individual, like Add-ons. Add-ons is a one person that is just very generous and contributes not only code but patron level like contributions. So super nice. But now we have a few new ones. We have Meta, we have Wacom. Yeah, Autotroph is strong up there. Nice. NVIDIA, AMD, and Otoy all up there. Super nice to see. Awesome. So yep, let's see what else is new in Blender. A bunch of fixes. Yeah, so many fixes. Okay, here, GPU. We have some improvements in performance and making Blender faster to load, faster to open, faster to close, faster to crash, faster to everything. It's faster. This is a cleanup, but I wanted to mention it because it will break some Python add-ons that are using the GPU API, because some definitions in PyGPU have changed. So yeah, they will change. Not only Py add-ons, but also will break many patches and changes, PRs, that pull requests that developers have made. But yeah, this is something that needs to be done for making things, cleaning up the code and making things future-proof. However, it also helps to have these kind of changes where CPU shader, parallel warm-up of built-in shaders. You can imagine this has to do with parallel running, so multi-thread, do as many things as possible as my computer can handle, and this has a huge improvement. So in some cases, the compilation of some shaders was much slower when done async for these shaders. So the saving might not be substantial in some cases, like Metal from 200 milliseconds to 1.2, but in some cases not really. On a Mac M1, it went from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. But in some other systems, might be the ping impact will be much bigger. But this means that the first pixel that's shown on screen is going to be faster to compute. Another removal that should have happened in 4.4, and it also happened in 4.5. Well, no, actually this didn't happen in 4.5. So Blender 4.5 ships with and 4.4 have shipped with a feature that no longer works because it was removed. It was improved, and the workaround wasn't removed, which is the option to hide the to use pick depth, select pick depth for selection in the viewport. That has been fixed in 4.4, but it wasn't removed. Now it is. So yeah, there is a setting, but it wasn't removed from 4.5 because it was too late already. It's a beta. So yeah, there is an option that doesn't do anything. Let's see. You know what does something? Blender developers. In this case, Ari Ramati, which I don't, it's a community contribution actually, has added to geometry nodes a new option to control the shape method in the PackUV Islands node. So there are 3 options. The UV Pack Islands has 3 options now: bounding box, convex hull, exact shape. These 3 options are now in the allows you basically to choose between a faster packing or more space efficient packing of your UV. So if you have enough space, your texture doesn't need high resolution, you can do the fast one. Or you can also choose, actually in geometry nodes, you can choose is viewport. So you could do for the viewport a quick UV unwrap where you would have a much more space efficient one for rendering. You could do that too. Let's see. Geometry nodes improve the grid socket shape. Yeah, the grid socket was a bit buggy in the way it displayed. Now it's not. There's a bunch of shapes that I have noticed, like this square one. Is it single values or what is it? Or this one? Why is it stretched? Because it supports multiple. No, not a big fan of this one in particular. It looks stretched out. It's, yeah, no. Let's see. Although, I mean, you could argue that they all get stretched out. It's just a UI thing, by the way. What's not a UI thing, and it's amazing to see, is that shape keys are now preserved when using node tools. This is data that will get lost and now is preserved. So yay, nice. Let's see. Then a bunch of glTF improvements. Grease pencil, some performance improvements. This fix also, or this improvement by Hans, makes the splash screen of Blender 4.3 about 6% faster. And what was the splash screen of Blender 4.3? I should remember that. It's in the... Yeah, it's Grease Pencil. It's this 4.3 is the house by the Blender Studio people downstairs. Here, these people. So this file plays 6% faster now in Blender 5. Nice. Bunch of internationalization changes. This is something I don't know if I shared my this how would you say it? Like I think when I showed a feature here regarding the language dropdown in the live stream, I was struck by how ugly it was basically. So the list of languages used to be split in 4 columns, well, it depends on how many they fit. They had categories if they were in progress, completed or not. So that made it so, and they were not sorted alphabetically. They were sorted by, I think, how complete the translation was, which means that the order would change, but also it had a weird order. Like I think British English was before American English, so it was B for A. Spanish was up there instead of near the S. So now that has been fixed. This is one list, and all the languages available. If you want to know which one, how much translation is, how much it is translated, you can mouse over and you will see, for example, Euskera, the Basque, from the Basque country, 1% translated, whereas Catalan is 100%. I'm not trying to, make any discussions open there, but yeah, well done, Catalan. Chinese, simplified also 100%. Spanish, we're almost, 100%. Yay, nice. Is Castellano, by the way. Romanian 2%, Russian 100%, Dutch 6%, UK 98%. Oh my, UK. You need some work to do. 98%. Okay, next. Oh, also the country, because it used to say British English and American English. Now it says English US, English UK, which is so much easier to understand. And it's just also English. If you want to know English, you want to pick English, you just go to E. And this is English. The letters, though, they're still like, if you want to use shortcuts, A is for automatic, but then the other ones, like if you press E for English, you will probably go to some other language first, which is because the word is the letter is taken by some other entry. I don't know which one, but yeah. Let's see. What else is new? IO, OBJ, add material name collision. When importing OBJ, there is a new feature which is the same used in USD that allows you to make a to treat duplicate names properly and make them unique. So now there is an option called make unique to create new materials with unique name for each OBJ file. So if they have conflicting names, they will become unique. Let's see. In the UK, we call it football. In the US, they call it getting drunk. That's I always have an issue with the O, with the U, and the getting drunk part. Nice, thanks, Harry Blends. What else has changed? NDOF, N degrees of freedom. These devices, now all spaces follow the same navigation mode preferences, whereas before they wouldn't. Why wouldn't? All spaces. Oh, it was only for 3D editors. Now all the editors share that. So there is no fly mode, but you get it. They share the same concept behind. Nice. Next, nodes. Another speed up by the one and only Add-ons. This change makes Voronoi textures about twice as fast. So the hash function itself is about 3 to 4 times faster, still with very good quality, but the result is twice as fast Voronoi calculation. Awesome. But you know what else is awesome? It's like, look at this PR. What a beautiful PR. Explanation, link to a paper, in bold, what is important to see at a glance, like twice as fast. Yep. Then it might be even faster if you use open shading language. Yes. Then another part in bold. This has visible changes. So if you started a movie that relies on Voronoi textures and you're planning to render half of it in 4.5 and half of it in 5, don't do that. Voronoi might look different because of the nature of random noises, right? So yeah, it is different. Stick with one version. But look at that. PR, main, and then implementation details, performance, a table with all the modes, PC main, PC VR, Mac, PC and Mac. Look at this level of PR that we have here. Amazing. CPU tests, GPU tests. Awesome. Amazing. Thank you, Add-ons, for the amazing PR, and the actual PR itself also super nice, like the content itself, making Voronoi textures such a popular texture much faster. What else? Oh, more removals. I mentioned this before, but yeah, more nodes are being removed. The combined separate nodes that were legacy, and they were actually removed in 3.3. They were not removed from the code. They were left around, but they were not exposed. If you open all files, they will still be there, but now they're completely removed. Another reason to stick with 5 if you use Blender 5 onwards. Open color IO, one change, but a small one, but a substantial one for interoperability, because many software use or name their color spaces differently, slightly differently. So what Blender has is a file with aliases, so basically different ways of calling the same thing, with underscore, with uppercase, lowercase, and yeah, there was one more that was missing, so this has been added, and the same for the linear Rec 709. So yeah, this is just for compatibility, and it was actually added in 4.5 as well. In the future, Blender 5 would, or other versions will probably just use the new name that is recommended by the Academy Software Foundation. Okay, next. Paint mode. Unified spaces, a per mode instead of a scene-wide value. This is a change that was some time ago. I think, what was it, 2.8 or 3.0? Some changes were done in unifying the painting options in Blender. This was a bit too much of a unification, so much so that if you changed a brush value in weight paint, it would affect grease pencil or other modes. Well, that has changed now. They are split per mode, so they're still unified across modes, so in the same mode, across brushes, but not across modes. So yeah, Skull, Vertex Paint, Grease Pencil Draw, they all are treated separately. What else? Let's see. Python. There is one change, which is remove the deprecated BGL API. That has been deprecated, I think, in Blender 4. It's been a while, but now it's being completely removed. And yay, because this gets rid of so much legacy in Blender. So always good to see. Wow, 4,500 lines removed. Nice. Yep. 4,500 lines. And like that, many other parts. Bunch of refactors for all kinds of areas, mainly many in the UI, thanks to Guillermo Venegas. Revert, yeah, because not always things stick around. Sometimes these changes are reverted, but I made sure that the ones that I mentioned are not reverted. Otherwise, I would, why showing them, right? Next, there is some removals also in shaders. This one, I will just mention for nostalgia reasons. Have you ever? Well, I remember the day it was added. The point density textures basically allowed you in Blender internal to have volume textures. You would have a particle system, and it would basically use those points in the particles, the particle points, to render, to add volume there. So it was like a cheap smoke volumes before we had actual volumes. And I remember using it. Probably I used it for Sintel back in the days in Blender internal. So goodbye point density texture. This gets rid of about 2,200 lines of code. And because nowadays you can do this with volumes, with actual point clouds, as we have way more control, so no need to have this. And more efficient rendering. Everything is more efficient now. And also this wasn't supported by EEVEE. It was only cycles. So yeah, it made sense to remember that, to remove that. You know what else is, it's gone, and I don't know why exactly, but well, the Nishita Sky node has been around for a while. It's most people I've seen using that, or actually most people probably use an HDRI texture for real, or a dome texture, but the built-in Pritham and Hosek-Wilkie sky models were really outdated, and they have been removed. Another 5,400 lines of code removed. Now Nishita is here to stay, and it also works with EEVEE and Cycle, so it's more future-proof, I guess. But yeah, goodbye Prism and Hosek-Wilkie. You will be remembered by your subtle shading models. Prism. Well, let's see. I guess it's a common name. Let's see. All right, let's talk about UNI. User interface changes. A whole bunch of changes happened this week. The user interface. So many changes this week related to theme editing. It is quite time consuming to edit themes in Blender. If you remember, for example, if you want to change the color of a tab in the sidebar, you would have to edit them in each editor every time 18 times, because it's 18 editors. Okay, 18 times. Each tab has an outline, color, color active, and a background. So that was 4 times, 18 times of, you can imagine, you do the math of how many settings you needed to tweak. The same, the panel, the color of the panels and the header of the panels had 2 different settings for each editor. So 18 times, 36 times for editing just the color of a panel. And that is no longer the case. That has been unified in, there were several steps. Okay, first, the tabs now have one setting, which it was already there. The tabs, the tab widget already existed in Blender. It was just used for some settings, not for all of them. In this case, for example, the tabs had 4 options for the sidebar tabs in each editor, and now there is just one. So now you edit the tab itself. So now you just edit the tab color itself, and it will change for every tab in the sidebar, in the navigation bar, and in the workspace tabs. They all have one setting. So yep, nice. I don't know if you get to see it there, but it's in the tab, same place that you would edit before. Like this setting would only affect the workspace and the navigation bar, but it wouldn't affect the sidebar tabs. So that's what has changed. This removed 54 settings that the users had to tweak every time. Nice. The same with panels. Panels, what I mentioned before, now they have one setting that you just tweak, and you will affect every panel on every editor, just one color to rule them all, basically. Well, 2 colors, one for the header, one for the background, because I think there's still value in tweaking the header and the panel separately, just to convey depth sometimes. So that's fine. That has stayed, but it's just the one setting now in the panel section of the theme edit. The tabs that I mentioned before now also have a new feature, a new option, but actually it's not just for tabs, but every widget gets one more option, because you remove some, you add some. One aspect of the widgets that was missing customization, in my view, was the outline color for active elements. So the outline, it's something you could change before, but for example, this was not possible. Having a checkbox that has an outline color when unchecked and a different outline color when checked, this wasn't possible. For example, when checked, it would always be gray, but now you can actually change that. The same for these tabs. Now you can have different colors when they are enabled or disabled, and basically everything can have an outline now as well. These items in the menu items, they had purposely removed the outline, but since outlines can be transparent, I decided, like, okay, maybe we can just allow users to have an outline in these items if they want to. So yeah, that is one change that has happened. Another thing is related going back to panels, was the text color. So when I mentioned that change before, the color of the of the panels was unified, but the text inside of the panels in every editor would rely on the colors for that editor. So you would change the background color globally with this new change, and then you have to go to every editor to change. Now the same color affects every panel on every editor, and it's just one setting with the same name that you're familiar with. It has one setting for the titles of the panels and one setting for the color inside of the of these panels. So this, I don't know, maybe from the outside looks like what changed? Well, basically for changing this, you will have to change it 18 times. Again, 18 times. Not anymore. No, it's just one setting. Nice. And the option is called it's just basically called text and title. And the previous colors for the sidebar and the toolbar, they were called region colors, and now they are they're called toolbar and sidebar because that's what they are. A small change also is that panels now have a shadow. So I don't know if you remember, but like let's try to open Blender 4. Actually, I happen to have Blender 4 here. Where am I? Here. So I don't know if you notice, sometimes this could happen where the color of the panels would basically be the same or match the background color. And this, of course, we could fix it by changing the background color of the 3D viewport. But yeah, sometimes it could happen whatever color you had, it will compete. So it would be hard to see where the panel starts and the other one ends. So this has been fixed or addressed in the Blender 5 with two things. One, shadows. So I don't know if you get to see there. Let me show you a bit more. Super high res. There you go. Now there is a subtle shadow around the panels, so you can tell where it ends and where it begins, even if the background color matches. This is not a new setting. This is using the same setting that the menus use. So if you go to user interface and their style and their panel menu shadow strength, you can adjust these to be a different strength or just hide it altogether, or you can also just change how wide it is. So you can go, I think 16 is a maximum without breaking, and then you can also have it super subtle, like 2 pixels, very subtle, you can't even tell. So yeah, that's a change. Another change is that, so I think these are the defaults, that you will, maybe you won't notice, but it's subtle, it's there. If you drag and drop this, oh, by the way, the shadow is only visible here in the viewport, not in the viewport, but every editor that has region overlap. But when you drag this, you may notice that the shadow becomes bigger when you drag a panel. And this also happens in non-overlap areas. So you can tell that there is a subtle, I don't know if you get to see it. So there is a subtle shadow when you drag a panel on top of the other ones to convey height, right? You're above the other panels. This will be more like, I need to show you in Blender 4 to see what was the issue before. It was just super subtle too. But you could run into the case where you don't, like, you run into halfway and you don't know where's the other panel and where this one ends, and small thing. Another change is the outline. You may have noticed that now there is an outline option. Similar to every widget that has an outline, the panels have an outline. So you can make the panels stand out as much as you want. This is a accessibility feature first. However, you can actually use it for your own, for small changes. If you want, for example, something very, very minimal, like if you don't care about shadows, outlines, background colors, you can, for example, make panel colors transparent and just keep the outline. So you can keep just the outline and super minimal. Then you can remove the shadows. You can even remove the outline if you want. And then you have nothing. It's just fully transparent. But yeah, Small thing, but I think it helps with readability, especially in these cases. What else has been added? Well, panels, when they narrow and there's no more room to show them, like when they're too small, now they will fade away and show less information instead of showing them to collapse. Although, I mean, this is also not very useful, but it's much better than what it used to be. Another thing that has been unified is the asset shelf. The asset shelf is only present in 2 editors so far, but there is a new one coming up. So I thought that it was probably a good idea to unify the styling of the asset shelf into one option, because this was already, even though the asset shelf is something relatively new, this has already the implications that every editor has its own asset shelf styling. Not anymore. Now there is one. It's global. It's called asset shelf. It's on the top level of the preferences, and 2 settings control the color of the asset shelf in every editor. Let's see. What else? This one. This is a paper cut. So I've seen, actually, this is on right-click select. I've seen complaint, basically a proposal that the color of the nodes was never 100% the color that you would pick in the. We're still in the topic of nodes, but of theming, by the way. So the color of the nodes, blender.org is very slow to run. By the way, blender.org being, no, this is Blender Community. What am I saying? Huh. Did I miss the actual commit? There you go. Right click select. Anyways, in the past, if you had a color that was super bright, like Blender internally when drawing it would try to dim those colors to make it always readable, and that was something I did in an effort to prevent unreadable setups. But you know what? People should be free, then choose whatever color they want. So let's see, what was, I opened the same twice. It's the same image, sorry, I thought it was 2 images. Okay, this is, so in the on the left side you have the colors that are in the theme, and this is how Blender will display them. So you see input node was super bright, but this is the color they will get. So not great. That has been changed. Now this is how it looks. No visual change for the users, but the color of the theme is the actual color that you see. So what you see is what you get. So if you want your input, or out in this case output nodes, to be completely unreadable, you should be able to do so. So you want something like is full 100% whatever color you want, you should be able to do it. So yeah, this is it. Any color of the rainbow. Let's see. I'm happy about that one. It's just, it took a while actually. It was, you know how cumbersome it is to take a screenshot and try to match the color that you see in Blender with the other one. But color spaces are a thing, so your screen shows a different color. So whatever I would set, yeah, anyway, took me a while, but I did it. Okay, you know what else I did? Removing stuff from the node editors, the theme editor. There were multiple editors like the graph, dopesheet, NLA, VSE, movie clips that have channels, right? So channels of actions and animation. For this, we have a theme setting, which is great. However, there were other editors that had settings that were not being used. Like the node editor had channels theme styling. What? Like that? Like, yeah, non-animation editors would have these options exposed. For example, the spreadsheet also had a source list, but the spreadsheet doesn't have anything like that. So this was removed. Less settings. This removes 8 unused theme settings that the users don't have to tweak anymore. And along that, this is a theme, a topic the navbar execution region was only used in 2 places, and yeah, it could use something else. So this removes 36 theme settings, 32 of which have no visual impact at all. They didn't do anything. So yeah, these are the 2 options that are being removed: navigation bar background and execution bar background. So now this has been removed, and now there is only one option called navigation tabs background. So you can still color the background of the tabs separately, just not per editor for that specific place. What else? Small one, but it's also based on a right-click select proposal. Somebody brought up that the clip editor graph was using hard-coded red and green colors for the axis. Now these 2 options are using the theme. So now it uses the theme. So this is before, well, and this is after. So small thing. By default, you wouldn't even notice, but basically it's using the theme. Options for axis X, Y, and Z for the errors. What was it? Reprojection error. Yeah. What else? Updating the light theme slightly, but now then widget property layouts to make it responsive. Small thing. You may have noticed, actually, and this is the last thing that I do, just UI. Well, no, not just the last one, but I don't know if you notice, the sidebar tabs are now pill shaped when not using the region overlap. So when you use region overlap, it will still look like this, like they're attached to the content, but when not, they are pill shaped. And by default now the background is transparent. So if you open Blender 4.4, you will see that you gain basically some real estate, some viewport real estate basically. So because you see that like this part is black, this doesn't need to be black actually in Blender. The theme, even in 4.4 and 4.5, you can tweak the, well, in this case, each editor's theme space, tab background, alpha. So if you remove that, then you gain a bunch of pixels. How much that? 50, 30, 50, well, depends on the resolution, but basically you gain a lot of real estate. So now that has been changed in, and this shape, which made the tabs not attached to anything, now no longer the case, because now they look like a pill shape, like this. The color hasn't changed yet, but this is something I would like to try. What do you think? And here's where I would like to start a poll. So, yay! And how do you do ne in English? So like blue highlights for sidebar tabs, or no, actually all tabs I have. What do you think? Shall we or shall we not? For this, like the theme by default should be blue or should be gray? What do you think? By the way, this doesn't. I'm just asking around. I think, of course, I'm going to take this into account. It's just, I think maybe when I make this poll, maybe I'm a bit biased or like, yeah, I would like to have this change, but just to see what do people think. Also, this is just the default, right? You can change to have whatever look you want. So yeah, that is one change that is good to see. However, my most favorite feature regarding the sidebar this week, it's not this, but it is this snapping. And I just want you to look here. Look at this amazing feature, and this may change the way Blender looks by default, by the way. So now you can snap the sidebar to show only the tabs or the content. So you can only the tabs. So you have 3 modes there: halfway and then back. And yeah, Pablo, yeah, this is great. However, what's so exciting about it? The most exciting part is that you can now toggle these on and off. You can just click on them and then toggle them. So you can now make Blender by default look like this, where you have the tabs, yep, but you don't have to show the tabs, the tab content anymore. So I think it's more discoverable. Like when you see the when you see these, it's like, okay, I know which one is the one I was working on, or if I see or not. Remember, you can scroll on this as well to see them. So nice. So tuk tuk tuk. This is so cool. So actually, somebody says, don't change too much, please. It's this change in particular, it doesn't have any impact on you, because if you press N to collapse, it works the same way. It just collapses whatever you had hidden by default. So to me, this is a huge improvement. And also tablet support, for example, when you're in a tablet mode, I would think I would always keep it this big and then just toggle them on and off. Super nice, super nice. Like also, okay, so how is the vote? How is the poll going? So 59 votes, 86. Okay, most people like it. Now, well, I'm not gonna make another poll, but basically, do you think that, I think it should, by default, Blender should have, instead, like right now, Blender default opens like this. So by default, it's collapse, but maybe we could make it Blender by default open, be like this. So users get to see a bit of a glance of the tabs that are open or not, are available or not. So nice. This one was by the one and only Harley. Thank you, Harley. What else? The region toggle pie. This was an option that was only available with developer extras, and that doesn't make any sense. Why would you? So this has been exposed. It's a region toggle pie is a pie menu that allows you, well, speaking of regions, actually, let's try it on. So you go to key map, region toggle pie, enable this, and now, I mean, if you, well, let's see, region toggle pie. So now if I press N, instead of toggling the sidebar, I get this pie menu. Sidebar on, sidebar off, asset shelf, header, and then tools. Nice. So with just a few flick of a cursor, you can turn on and off. Let's see if I can. Okay, there. Asset shelf, header, and it's even smart because if I move the header down, now the header is at the bottom and the asset shelf on the left. Neat. So we move it here, flip the top, and now this is the option. So this is an option in the key map. However, this one in particular works best with this pie menu on drag. What this does is to basically preserve the old method with the new one. So if I press N, well, is it even working? Pie menu on drag. Ah, no, wait, this is not working for this yet. There was a PR that I was, no, let's see. Okay, basically, we could make it work, and we should make it work together. So when you press N, it will open the sidebar. So all tutorials that have ever existed in Blender in the last 30 years keep working. When you drag though, it could toggle the pie menu. So in the same case that the feature that I mentioned, you press set, it toggles wireframe, which is similar to how Blender 2.7 used to do it. But if you hold and drag, you get this pie menu, which is super nice. I think the same for tab. If you tab, you enter edit mode, but if you tab drag, you go into this pie menu. So same functionality, tab, instead of having control tab to always. I mean, control tab still works. It's just two functionalities built into one. All right, next. Small one, literally small feature. It's adding a tiny bit of margin to the sides, because previously, yeah, it's hard to see because we don't have the comparison, but basically there was no gap between the edges and the edge of the window, and this makes it not only look nicer by only using 1-2 pixels on each side, but also if you want to drag from that part, you want to split the window from a part, it's much better. Next, outliner. Yes, slight improvements. I don't know if you have seen them. Maybe if you're using the latest, you may have seen it, but this is how it used to look. So the highlights were full from left to right, full width, full height, which some cases, I mean, maybe it looks clean because it's all one flat color, but also made it a bit confusing. When you had multiple items, it looked like this was just one item, where there actually were 2 items. So now this is how it looks. Each item, it's in its own little capsule with rounded corners, similar to the file browser and other parts in Blender. And you can tell that these are 2 items instead of just the one. So subtle change there. Another change that it's more subtle as well is that the active element, and only the active element, has a slightly brighter outline, whereas before it was just a difference in color. This is an attempt to improve accessibility, and people who can't see the differentiate between colors very well, you can now tell that the active one has an outline, so you can yeah, it's another improvement for accessibility. And another change, a small one, it's the let's see if I can zoom in these two, because you have to see it in motion, is that when you drag something, the highlight used to be black. If you look at the left side here, the highlight used to be black. What kind of highlight is black? And also it was hard to see because the dark background is hard. So now the highlight is actually lighter, but also has an outline, so you can see, and the outline is the same color that is used for the color between the items, whereas before the line in between, you see, it was very subtle. It was just a black line between these two there. It's very hard to see. And now this line is actually lighter, so you can see that there is a line that tells you, hey, it's going to be moved between collections. Small change. What else? Resize limit to tree view. Yes, there is a limit now to, well, this is coming from the UI list. It's one of those features that UI lists have, where you can limit the size because right now you don't have a limit size for scaling some of the lists, and this is a bit silly because it means that you can end up with an empty space. So now you developers and add-on developers in the future will be able to limit the size that they want to have as a minimum size for these kind of lists. Then, another contribution from the community, Ethan made it so when you can't duplicate a so when you can't remove a material slot, it, instead of letting you remove it and then telling you, hey, you can't, now it will tell you in advance and it will be grayed out. So small thing, but making those changes, like making this grayed out and giving you a message why it can't be removed, like in this case, unable to remove material slot in edit mode, is always good for UI UX. You know what else is good for UI UX? When things are consistent. The status bar or the header content, the text for vertex slide used to show you these shortcuts like even or clamp, but we have the technology to have this in the status bar now. So we are going to use that. Vertex slide is the information going to get in the header as usual, but now the shortcuts are going to be shown for clamping and for even vertex slide. They will be shown in the status bar, like everything else. And speaking of status bar or parts that are at the bottom of the screen, is that there is a new region in the dope sheet, graph, NLA, and the video sequence editor called footer. Yes, it's not some kind of fetish the Blender has. It's a new region that you will have in, for example, some places. So this is a request that many people have had in many years, and you probably have seen it. You maybe have seen it. So you know, this is Blender, this is the timeline editor, and this particular section and this particular section is something that users want everywhere. So the playback buttons, I don't know why people use these buttons. I'm so used to shortcuts. Like, it's so slow to come here and then press play, but apparently it's a workflow that many users use, and people coming from Maya and other software, they miss this in other editors. So this has been addressed in, let's see, the dope sheet or the graph editor. Let's say the graph editor, right? You're editing your curves and you're missing those buttons. What people would do previously, they would just like have a tiny timeline like this, and that's not great. So now what you can do is in the graph editor, you go to enable footer, and this enables the playback buttons. So this is a footer, but you can actually right click and flip it to top, so you have it in the top, and you can do the same with the header. You can move the header to the bottom, which sounds weird, but yeah, now you have this. Now you have these buttons in every animation editor, and you can even stack them if you want, but yeah, they're always here. And this is not only for the graph editor, but this is also in the dope sheet. Dope sheet, go to footer, you have the footer, and even in the video editor. So if you go to video editing workspace, there is a timeline at the bottom, but I think for when Blender 5 comes out, this will be gone. The timeline will be removed, and we will have a footer. So basically the same real estate in just one editor. And actually this is also available in here in the preview, so maybe it makes even more sense to have this in the preview instead. Anyways, this is an effort to simplify Blender itself, and at some point even getting rid of the timeline editor altogether, because the timeline and the dope sheet are the same thing. You can customize them to be the same thing. There's no reason for them not to be. Like, the only difference in the timeline was these playback buttons, and now that every animation editor has them, you don't need this anymore. So yeah, goodbye timeline. Soon at some point it's gonna go away. Less editors, yay. Let's see. UI, there's a lot of changes in transitions. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm gonna show this one very quick because there are more changes coming. It has to do with making the UI more calm, more zen. Something that happens often is that when you split windows, and well, now when you split a window, you get this light color, right? Like boom, bright light. And this will fade in. There is a patch coming that it will fade in. So for the time being, there is one on fade out, the one that is currently in the main version of Blender. So you will notice that if I join this here, like the moment I release the button, you will see a fade. Nice. So it's subtle, but when you see it, it's like it makes for a subtle. For a more calm Blender overall. Like, it looks a bit more slick, I think. And this is gonna be all around Blender. It's one of the topics for Blender 5 to make all these transitions a bit softer, a bit lighter, without affecting any performance at all. All these changes are done only when they are free, as in, they, like, Blender is already computing an update anyway, so might as well add a little fade in, fade out. So yeah, this is not adding any kind of performance impact on the regular usage of Blender. Just to say, because sometimes it happens. There will be an accessibility setting that I suggested. It's one of the accessibility. There's one called Reduce Motion, which it's not there yet in Blender, but I would like to have it soon. So basically allows you to disable some animations, like the fade in and out, like slide in and out of the sidebars. This will be possible to remove it, to get rid of it. Okay, Windows Vista. No, Blender will not turn into Windows Vista, not at all. It's just like in some cases, like in this case, when you have a bright section of your screen, it's good to be soft about showing it and hiding it. Okay, next. More renamings in some nodes to make the labels yeah, more user friendly. Basically, there was one node that had a socket called std dev, like standard deviation, but std dev. Now it's called standard deviation. We can afford more characters now. Yay. Nice. What else? A fix in using the selected text item for the tree views. This is a fix you wouldn't even notice. There was a right-click select proposal that mentioned adding icons to the visible tabs popover. So I went ahead and made a change, basically. So visible tabs, now you will have to guess by name which one corresponds to what, but now these icons correspond, so it's easy to see which one you're going to turn on and off. Let's see. And everything is in Spanish now by default to help you with the, it's a Blender plus Duolingo contribution. Oh no, don't. But it could be a fun April's Fool, right? Like, yeah, Blender joins Duolingo, so now some panels would randomly show at different languages, just so you get a little test. Horrible. Another suggestion by a bug report, actually. Someone's bug report was that, hey, I adjust the HDRI preview settings, but it's actually affecting the lighting in my scene. And let's see if there was a video. So yeah, basically the scene lights were affecting the HDRI preview. And you would think, why would the light affect the HDRI previews? Because one is for HDRIs. Well, turns out that is not the case. Those spheres are more than that, and they actually are affected by the lighting in your scene. So they have been renamed. That option is no longer called HDRI preview, but reference spheres. Similar to a name that it gets in other software. What else? Okay, not much more. Okay, so time to switch topics. There was a lot of UI. I'm sorry about that. USD. Add support for point instancing during export. Yep. Yep. That's it. Actually, authored by Apple. Wow. Thank you, Apple. Point instancing support during export. Covers both round trip and Blender native workflows. Exports the instance on points setups as a USD geom point instancer, supporting objects, collections, and nested properties. A warning is shown during export if invalid prototype references are detected. Neat. The feature is currently gated behind an off by default export option. So yeah, you need to turn it on if you want to use it. What else? Well, let's switch to UV. Yep. Sorry, I need more mate. Oh my gosh, UV improvements. Apple, yes. Actually, the changes are coming from Apple, because I believe that for the Apple Vision Pro, I don't know why exactly, but So don't take this with a grain of salt, how they say it. But their Vision Pro uses USD and for a bunch of things, or for previewing many, or in your environment and so on. So maybe that's why they use USD, but I don't know exactly for sure. That's just a guess. I just saw it in one of the WWDC that they use the USD for that. Okay. What else? UV. Yes. Split island. Select into a separate option and add support for sync selected. So change the island selection from being its own selection mode along with side, vertex, and face mode to a separate toggle. It's no longer the same thing, it's separate. This makes it possible to use sync selection without losing the functionality as previously. Island selection didn't work when sync select was enabled. That's so nice. Oh my gosh, I wanna try it right away. Let's go to the best example for crappy geometry, which is Suzanne, because the eyes are separate, right? So these are different islands. Let's see, let's go to UV editing. And now, so visually, the only thing that changes is that the UV island selector is now separate from these two. So now I can actually select, like do UV island selection, even though this is on or off. So let's see. I can press L and still have this connected. Nice. So what would have happened before? If you go to Blender, this is Blender 4, I believe, 4.4.2. I go to UV editing. Let's add a monkey Suzanne and then try to enable sync selection. And then this would work, but the moment you select something here, back and forth, it wouldn't be available actually. So now you can. Neat. Sorry. Still recovering for like 3-4 weeks already. 4 weeks, because I mentioned that. Let's see. Pablo went full Italian for a second. Why is that Italian? You know, Argentinian is. I'm from Argentina. We have a lot of Italian blood in ourselves. Like our Italian descent percentage is like 62%. Oh my gosh. That's why we have great food. And many other good things. And not so good things, maybe. But yeah. Okay, let's see. VSE, Video Sequence Editor. Great changes this week. 1. Modal mode for strip add operator. So let's open Blender 4.4 again. So have you ever noticed in the video sequence editor, for example, right? That you're somewhere here, you add a color, and then what is my color? Oh, it happens to be here at the playhead. Okay, cool, that's fine. When you have a setup that is a lot more complex than that, right? Like, and you want to add a text, it gets added to anywhere it wants. Like it gets like I have my cursor over here. Like I have this selected. So where is it gonna go? I have this channel active. Like I'm using this. Why is it going down there? So it was so unpredictable to know where a strip will go that that's now fixed, because when you add a new let's say add a new color, now you enter translate mode, so you can actually place it wherever you want. So you're here and I want to add text to the third channel around this spot. Just go here, text, and you're here. Done. So you can see, what you get. I mean, adding to the playhead is still valuable. So if you're doing something like you want to specifically put it here, you could. Although it would be nice, maybe like we don't have a proper media bin. If we add a proper media bin, you could like right click, add to, or like insert into timeline, into sequencer timeline. So yeah, you could. But most of the time, anytime you're adding something, you just want it to be, maybe not for for the translation mode of some effects. Makes sense. But most of the time you wanna where your cursor is. I mean, you know where your cursor is already. So yeah, that has been addressed. So nice, thank you, Richard. Then Aras made the sequencer awesomer by allowing text strips to be longer, that support longer text than 512 bytes. So you can have the Star Wars intro text, the entire Star Wars intro text fading into infinity with the text strips. It's nice. Then speaking of text strip, now the bounding box of text strips are now is much more precise. Nice. And there is a demo here. So the bounding box changes size as you type, and when you have effects, certain effects in your meshes, in your it doesn't affect the bounding box. So I think there is a picture somewhere here, and there you go. So the bounding box is only in here. However, the selection rounding box is not visible, but you should be able to still click in the outline area or in the box and then select it. But for editing, it's more predictable, I would say. Click where the text is. So yeah, let's see. A bunch of changes and improvements on prefetching and caching. Now it's aware of playback loops, for example. Raw cache also is prefetching is aware of raw caching, and sometimes it would happen that the prefetch would get in loop where it would just or when you are looping in a section, the prefetching wouldn't be aware of it, so it would prefetch somewhere else, or it wouldn't know, like, okay, this animation is limited to this preview range, for example. This now you can, now it knows. Well, you don't have to do anything, Blender does it for you, thanks to Sebastian. So thanks, Sebastian. And last but certainly not least, besides other more important changes to caches and so on and so forth, is in Vulkan, because HDR support has landed for Wayland. Yes, Wayland, so Linux supports Linux under Wayland now supports HDR as an experimental feature. It supports both non-linear extended sRGB and unclamped sRGB. Windows isn't supported yet, Mac is, as the HDR settings are not accessible via an API and will require similar settings that games use to configure the monitor. Adding those sliders isn't what we would like to add. Vulkan is working on, like the working group, Kronos, I guess, is working on new extension that might change the shortcomings. It isn't clear yet what the extension will do and what the impact is for applications when the extension is out and when they will be reviewed. So nice, macOS and Linux Wayland supports it. Neat. Awesome. The year of Linux on desktop with HDR has arrived. Okay, well, that's it for today. I think I covered pretty much everything. I did not make did not make a Blender community Blender today. Has someone made it? Yes, someone made it here. And let's edit this to add the summary so it's a bit more complete. And then I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna make it embedded, which this trick. If you open curly brackets YouTube and the ID and then you close it, Blender community will make it as a embed. So there are two questions. One of them, and then maybe we can hang out in the chat until 7 o'clock. One of them is, nice to see all the improvements in Blender's UI UX. Do you think the long-standing request for differentiating instances at a glance in the outliner will be tackled someday? Let's see which ones. I think I remember one of them. So let's see which 1, 2, 3. So better visual intensification of linked and its instances. all links in bold, instance in italic. There are multiple proposals on this. I don't think anyone has. Oh, this the D, the down there the. Oh, actually, it's not too bad for duplicate. I wonder, because many of these changes, and yeah, someone suggested actually the Midge, the Mantisa, and I avoided this from 6 years ago to use this. We don't use, Blender supports italics, but we don't use that anywhere else. The thing is, and that I'm a bit wary about this, is that we should use this everywhere. Like everywhere we use instances, we should this should be a design language, right? That we use elsewhere. So where would you use that? And how? Linked items could use italic, or duplicate could. I like this one. They're using the D there for duplicate. But then, no, because duplicate linked, you want to have the number of users there. That basically, if it's bigger than 1, or if there is a number, because we could just hide it if there's 1, then it means that it's a linked duplicate, because it's the only way we have multiple users. It's yeah, so it is different though. It is different. You want to have the username there. So yeah, and I wonder, I mean, on the technical side, I wonder if it's even possible to if it's even possible to know at that place in time where the tree is getting calculated, if we know about that information from an object. Okay, let's see. Is that it? No, there was another question. But yeah, this is the moment to introduce this kind of changes. I will. I don't really know where to. Maybe I could give it a try. I don't know. Where could I find out if something is linked or not? And I wonder if it's even. I can give it a try. It's fun to play with like just browsing through the code, first finding out where in the code is something, and then try to from there try to implement a feature. But yeah, then where were we here? Next, Select says, hello Pablo. By the way, did you notice that how some users have their badges now? They have a badge for the feedback, 24 feedback, like Slow Kid, which is also a bronze development supporter, subscribed to the Blender Studio, donated to the Blender 30 birthday, and did the survey 2024. Okay. I mostly use Blender for 2D animation like Spine 2D. Recently, I found the key mesh add-on. I would like to just pass on to the devs if they need a firstborn or a child sacrifice. I offer mine. It's good stuff. Could we get improvements to the image sequence node in shading? Okay, these are two things. Key mesh add-on. Yes, that one is actually in the extensions platform, right? So you don't even need to key mesh, I believe. Yeah, it's here. It's built in. By the way, I saw a video, a Blender tutorial the other day that was showing this website to get extensions. Then it will click on get add-on, and then it will click on download, and then it will go to Blender, and then it will go to the settings, add-ons, install from disk, and then install what was just downloaded. And I'm like, I died inside. I died inside a little that day. I was at home in my couch and I was like, we're doing something wrong. As designer, as UI team part, whatever. Because the website tells you drag and drop into Blender. That's one thing. The tab, breaking all kinds of Blender language, because we never give an action. We never say like, get this, do this, browse that. It's always, and we did it for this one, get extensions. We did the whole system here where you can just search for key mesh and then install it, and then you get automatic updates and whatever. You can allow online access and then updates, and then you can install key mesh from here. But still, I saw a tutorial where they would use this install method. And I died inside a little. Let's see. There are 6 comments. Okay, no going to the chat yet. Hi Pablo, any updates on panoramic fisheye lenses being added to EEVEE? No, but it is on the radar. It's something the developers are aware of. But yeah, there are many many issues with EEVEE. Yesterday actually, Clement, the main developer behind EEVEE, creator of EEVEE, at the just dropped by and he said, hey, I am looking into one of the 600 bug reports of EEVEE, and then he asked something about particle stuff. So yeah, 600 bug reports. There are not many developers available out there. Miguel Pozos, Clement. But yes, if you want to help, well, if you are a developer yourself, actually, you can go to blender.org, and in the jobs tab, you can apply as a senior graphics engineer to work in Blender. Actually, participate in this. Real-time rendering engineer, senior graphics engineer. So 2 positions for developers. But if you're not a developer and you want to help, you can do so with a one-time donation or a monthly subscription. Let's see. David said, have a great day. Until now, I've only been able to watch the live session afterwards, but now that I'm here, I would like to share it. Nice. Double click to add a reroute node. I think it will be much clearer and more convenient if you could just double click on a node connection. I totally agree. This would be super nice. Although, I mean, shift click is not bad, right? Like, it's not too bad when you're here. Like shift right click, shift. Like no double clicking, it's just like, it's like chopping, like a video game. Like more than a like double click maybe. Wow, command. I can also control X to dissolve. Huh, I didn't remember that. Nice. Control to dissolve. Anyway, maybe double click I wouldn't use for adding a reroute. I would use double click to bring this search, so you can start adding a new node in that exact connection. Maybe I would use that. Double click to add like this, for example. That would be better to bring up the search and then you type something to that. That to me would be a better use of double click. Smart data type recognition for nodes. What I mean by this is having only float 2, float 3, and float 4, no separate color type, for example. The math node would automatically detect the input types and process them accordingly. This works exactly like Unreal, makes the system far simpler and more transparent. Thing is, maybe you can make this into a right-click select so other developers can see and mention and give feedback. Use luminance, LM, and lux as units for light intensity. Working with these units makes it much easier to find real-world values online. Yeah, actually, there were some changes recently to unify how EEVEE and Cycles does it. They're not using these terms, but at least it's unified. Provide real-world lighting examples. It will be helpful to include examples of real-world lighting values. Unity has a great reference for this. For instance, a candle has a color temperature. But what is this? These are presets. So when you have a light, you would have like maybe light presets here. The same way that we have it in other areas, and then you could choose candle and it will make like a point light with, that could actually work. I know that's super easy to do with 19K. So with a temperature of 900 like this, and it will be candle, and then with the power of something. Make a pull right click, well, pull request if you're interested in it. It's not really that hard actually to make presets. The hardest part is to come up with them. So if you can make a right click select proposal and maybe give a few examples, will be fun. Maybe sun, and then you add the temperature of the sun here, and then you can choose. That would be nice. It's basically a preset in Blender, it's a small Python file, which 1 line per setting, that sets these settings. That's it. And let's see. Sheldon says, finally get to see you live. Question, any plans for animation layers in Blender in the future? No need of plannings because Blender already supports animation layers. However, only supports 1 layer now. The system has been rebuilt from scratch in the previous version 4.4, 4.5 currently to support animation layers. It just happens that now it's limited to 1 layer because there's, you can imagine, rewriting the animation system for an animation software is quite an undertaking. So yeah, resources are limited at the moment. Only 1 layer available, but it will be relatively simple to add more layer support, but it requires a lot of design and UI work and so on and so forth. So yeah, the system allows it. So it is closer than we think it is. And the last question by David again says, is there any update or when this might be available? Progress on the new bevel geometry node? Well, that you will have to ask Howard. Unfortunately, Howard is working, I mean, he's a contributor to Blender. He's not a paid developer, so he can work as fast as he can. He's very committed though. He's not, he's always around for decades, I would say, since always. And he is the author of what we have at the moment. So I think it will arrive. It's just, yeah, people are busy and unfortunately we can't afford everyone. There are developers that are contributors and they're helping Blender out of their goodwill because there's no way we can afford certain developers, right? If you're living in the US with a, or in the Bay Area with some crazy income from those big tech companies, there is no way we can match that. So sometimes we just have to do, you know, have to be happy with what you get. All right. That's it. Is there many more? Okay, one more, and then I shut this down. Can you explain platform themes? Not even hi, by the way. Hi, Dinesh. Platform themes. Wait, you mean Studio? The studio.blender.org/themes is the only thing that comes to mind. It's the Blender Studio allows for team memberships, by the way. So for the Blender Studio, you can have your own individual subscription, which is 10 per month or so, 11 per month. And then you get access to all the studio content, blend files, assets, tutorials, everything. With a team subscription, you get unlimited access for everyone in your team, no matter the size of your company. And also you get, well, besides displaying the logo of your studio, if you're using it, for example, Mega Drago or Be-Water, Light and Color, or the school in Munich, I believe. You also get 1 hour per month in this, or negotiable hours up to the top contribution with people from the team here. Actually, you get on a phone call and you can talk to them, and yeah, you get basically training or support on the Blender Studio. But not like, hey, this doesn't, well, maybe it is, maybe this doesn't render, but you know what I mean. This is a special type of subscription for teams, for big teams, companies that are, actually, this list of teams here is not everyone. I know there are studios that are subscribed to the Blender Studio teams that are really big, and we don't show them because they choose not to. This is, you can choose to be shown or not here. So it's just nice to see, to have their support, but yeah, not everyone wants to be listed. The same with the development fund, actually. There's like, everyone knows that Apple is a supporter of Blender in many ways, like with development, with it's just not shown here because many companies choose not to. So, but not many actually, but yeah, some choose not to, and that's totally fine. Okay, that is all for this. Let's jump into the chat and wrap this up for today. I think we've seen quite some updates in pretty much every area. UI, lots of UI, Compositor. Yeah, happy to see even EEVEE updates. So we'll see each other's when is the next time? I think the next one is in, let me open my calendar and see. Actually, this is easy to share. So like how busy the calendar is. So June, next one is, the next one is going to be July, of course. Yes, 8th of July, one day for Argentina's Independence Day. So time to celebrate. 8th of July is going to be the week, maybe, I heard, if what I heard is true, maybe the week of Dog Walk release, the video game by Blender Studio, or it's actually the week before Blender 4.5 comes out, which means I have a grand total of 1, 2, and 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks, for working on the release notes. I better hurry up. So let's wrap this up and see each other on the next episode of Blender Today. Again, thanks for hanging out here with me and keeping me company while I go through 400 and plus changes in Blender. This wouldn't be possible without the contributions from you, without the support from you, and yeah, everything that you do, all the material that you make for Blender. And I know this may be frustrating. Well, partially, if you're a content creator, you get a lot of news to share with Blender, but also partially annoying because many changes in Blender are actually breaking changes in 5.0. Many add-ons will need updating because Blender keeps growing. Many blend files will need updating and setups, but that's the beauty of open source, is that you can use the current version forever, everything forever. So if you have older hardware or newer hardware, you can use whatever software works with you. And Blender will always be there. A Blender version will always accompany you. Yes, is that an English word? Let's wrap it up. See you next time for another episode of Blender Today live. Bye. There you go. What an underwhelming ending. Bye-bye.